The war was finally over. After years of fighting between Earth and the Zarketh Empire, both sides had agreed to peace. The cost was heavy, cities destroyed, families broken, and many lives lost. But now, peace talks were held on a neutral planet, with both humans and aliens sitting at the same table for the first time in history. Part of the peace agreement included something very strange. The Zarketh had a cultural law. When a noble caused dishonor to their empire, they were given over to the enemy as a form of punishment. It was not slavery in the human sense. It was a sign of deep shame. The noble would live under the care of the enemy for one full cycle, about 1 Earth year. That's how she ended up here. Her name was Zalara. She was tall, graceful, and had glowing violet eyes. Her skin had a soft silver blue color, and her long hair shimmered like moonlight. In her own world, she was considered royalty, but now she stood silently in front of a simple Earthman, waiting to hear what would happen next. The human's name was Caleb. He was a former engineer who had worked on space station repairs during the war. He wasn't rich or powerful. He didn't even expect to be part of this treaty. But somehow, through a strange lottery system, his name was picked to be the one to receive the noble girl. Caleb stared at her with wide eyes. He didn't know what to say. This wasn't something he ever imagined. "She's yours to care for," the alien official said. "She is not to be harmed, but she will live in your home, under your command." "This is her punishment," Caleb frowned. "I don't command people," he said calmly. "She can stay, but she's not my prisoner. I don't care what your culture says. I don't treat people like that." Zalara narrowed her eyes. She didn't speak. Her pride was strong, but her silence was louder than any words. The transport left, and Caleb was now alone with a noble alien woman who clearly didn't want to be here. The first few days were quiet. Caleb gave her a private room in his small house near the mountains. It was peaceful there, far from any big cities. He made sure her room had everything she needed: clean sheets, soft lights, and even a small music device connected to alien channels. Still, she said nothing to him. She would only nod, or stare, or walk away. One evening, Caleb sat at the table eating his simple dinner of rice and vegetables. He noticed her standing in the hallway, just watching. He pushed the plate a little toward her. "You can eat, you know," he said kindly. "You don't have to hide." "I don't need human food," she finally replied in a cold voice. "Well," Caleb smiled, "suit yourself. But I cook a lot and I hate wasting food." She said nothing more and walked back to her room. Days passed. One morning, Caleb noticed her outside looking at the sky. The air was cool, and wind moved through the trees. She looked different. Not proud. Not cold, just lost. "I can build a skylight in your room," Caleb offered gently. "Something that shows stars like your home planet. Might help you sleep better." Zalara turned to him slowly. Her eyes were confused. "Why would you do that?" He shrugged. "Because you look homesick and because I can." She didn't reply, but she didn't walk away either. That night, Caleb worked late. He adjusted the ceiling in her room and added a projection dome. When she returned, the ceiling sparkled with soft lights, mimicking the Zarketh constellations. It wasn't perfect, but it was beautiful. Zalara stood in silence for a long time. She didn't thank him, but she didn't insult him either. Later, when she thought Caleb had gone to sleep, she whispered to herself, "This is not what I expected." She lay on the bed, eyes on the stars above her. It was not home, but for the first time in weeks, her heart felt a little lighter. 1 week later, the house felt less cold. Zalara still didn't smile. She still walked with her chin high and said very little, but she no longer stayed locked in her room. She sometimes sat near the window watching birds. Sometimes she watched Caleb as he fixed small machines or repaired the power line to his garden. She began asking short questions. "What is that tool? What are you building? Why do humans use so many wires?" Caleb always answered with patience and kindness. He never made fun of her. He never raised his voice. One day she followed him to the market. She said it was only because she needed fresh air, but when a human shopkeeper asked, "Is that your alien servant?" Caleb answered firmly, "She's not my servant. She's just staying with me." Zalara looked at him for a long moment. That night she stood outside his room and softly said, "Thank you." It was the first time she used those words. The days passed quietly, but Caleb and Zalara's lives began to change slowly. Zalara, the proud alien girl, was learning about Earth, and Caleb, the humble human man, was learning about her world. It was not easy. They came from very different places. Their habits and ideas were not the same, but they both wanted to understand each other. One morning, Caleb found Zalara standing by the window. Outside, the sun was bright and warm. Birds flew through the blue sky. Zalara frowned. "The air here, it smells strange. It is not like Zarketh." Caleb smiled. "Earth is different. Some smells you may not like, but others are nice, like fresh grass or rain." Zalara turned her head. "I do not like the smell of machines and cars." Caleb laughed softly. "I don't blame you. I don't like them much either." Later, Caleb invited Zalara to eat with him. He made a simple meal of bread, cheese, and fruit. She looked at the food carefully. "How do you eat this?" she asked. "Just bite it," Caleb said with a grin. Zalara took a small bite. Her face twisted in surprise. "It tastes strange, sweet and sour. Not like food from my world." Caleb chuckled. "Different planets have different food. You'll get used to it." She nodded but didn't smile. Days turned into weeks. Zalara still stayed mostly quiet, but Caleb noticed she was watching him more. She watched how he fixed things around the house and garden. One afternoon, Caleb showed her an old radio. "This machine sends sound through the air," he said. "You can listen to music, news, or stories." Zalara's violet eyes widened. "Sound travels through the air like telepathy." "No, it uses waves like light, but different," Caleb explained simply. She touched the radio carefully. "This is interesting. On Zarketh we have music too, but it is made with crystals." Caleb smiled. "Maybe you can teach me about your music sometime." One evening, Caleb noticed Zalara standing outside in the dark. The stars were shining bright. She looked up at the sky with longing. "I miss my home," she whispered. Caleb stepped beside. "I know this is hard for you, but I want you to feel safe here." Zalara looked at him. "Why are you kind to me?" "I am only a punishment for my people." Caleb shook his head. "You're not a punishment to me. You're a person. Everyone deserves respect." For the first time, Zalara smiled just a little. It was soft and shy. The house was quiet that night. Suddenly, a loud thunderstorm began. Lightning flashed and rain poured down. Zalara looked worried. "I do not like storms," she said softly. Caleb opened the window and let the cool rain in. "Storms are scary, but they wash the world clean. Maybe it will help you feel better." Zalara watched the rain, her eyes shining with quiet tears. Caleb sat beside her. "You don't have to be afraid, I'm here." She leaned her head on his shoulder. "Thank you, Caleb." The next day, Caleb showed Zalara some books about Earth. There were stories about brave people, kind friends, and faraway places. Zalara was curious. She asked many questions. Why do humans fight wars if they have stories about peace? Caleb sighed. Sometimes people forget the good parts, but most want peace. War is the mistake, not the answer. Zalara nodded slowly. On Zarketh, we have many rules about honor and punishment. It is hard to change. Caleb said softly. Maybe you can help change those rules one day. She looked at him. Maybe I can.
One afternoon, Zalara helped Caleb in the garden. She touched the soil and smiled. This is different from Zarketh. The plants are smaller. Caleb laughed. Earth has many kinds of plants, some small, some tall. This one is my favorite. Zalara
picked a flower and handed it to Caleb. For you, she said quietly. Caleb's heart warmed. Thank you, Zalara. Time went by, and people in the town began to notice Zalara. Some were curious, some were kind, and some whispered. One day, a shopkeeper asked Caleb, "Is she really your servant?" Caleb looked the man in the eye. "No, she is my guest and my friend." The shopkeeper was surprised but said nothing more. Zalara stood by Caleb's side, proud and calm. One evening they sat by the fire. Caleb played a soft song on his old guitar. Zalara listened. The music was strange to her, but it made her feel peaceful. She looked at Caleb. "Your music is different, but I like it." Caleb smiled. "Maybe one day I will hear your music too." Zalara nodded. "I will teach you." Slowly the walls between them began to fall. Zalara was no longer just the alien girl given as punishment. She was becoming someone who chose to stay. Caleb was no longer just the man who received her. He was becoming someone she could trust. One night before going to sleep, Zalara whispered, "I do not know what will happen next, but I want to stay a little longer." Caleb smiled softly. "You are always welcome here." She closed her eyes and felt for the first time that maybe this strange new world could be a home. Spring came slowly to the mountains where Caleb and Zalara lived. The snow melted and the trees began to grow green leaves again. With the change of season, Zalara started to change too. No longer was she only the proud alien girl given as punishment. She was becoming someone who wanted to learn, to live, and maybe even to stay. One morning, Caleb found Zalara in the garden. She was kneeling by a small patch of flowers, her long fingers touching the soft petals gently. "You like plants?" Caleb asked, stepping closer. Zalara looked up and smiled softly. "They are peaceful. I like how they grow quietly." Caleb nodded. "They need care and time, just like people." Zalara's eyes were full of thought. "I want to learn how to grow plants like this." Caleb laughed. "I'll teach you." They spent the morning planting seeds and watering the soil. Caleb showed her how to make small holes in the ground and cover the seeds with earth. Zalara watched carefully and copied his movements. Days later, Zalara came to Caleb with a small pot of sprouting leaves. "Look," she said proudly, "my first plants." Caleb smiled warmly. "You're a natural gardener." She looked at him shyly. "Thank you for teaching me." Caleb waved his hand. "You taught me too. You taught me patience." Life was not easy for Zalara. She missed her home planet more than ever when the days were long and quiet. She often thought about her family, her friends, and the bright stars of Zarketh. One night she told Caleb about her fears. "My people see me as weak now. They think I was punished because I failed them." Caleb listened carefully. "You are not weak. You are brave to be here and to start over." Zalara looked at him with tears in her eyes. "I am scared I will never be accepted again." Caleb took her hand gently. "You are accepted here. By me." The trust between them grew stronger. Zalara started to open her heart slowly. She shared stories of her home, of crystal cities and vast oceans that glowed under twin moons. Caleb listened with wide eyes. He told her about Earth's mountains, rivers, and forests. He showed her pictures of animals she had never seen. One day, Caleb took Zalara to a small town nearby. It was her first time outside the mountain house since she arrived. People stared at her strange clothes and pale skin. Some whispered, but others smiled and nodded. Zalara felt nervous but stood tall. Caleb walked beside her, proud and calm. At a market stall, a little girl reached out to touch Zalara's hand. Zalara smiled warmly. "Hello," she said softly. The girl giggled and said, "You're pretty." Zalara laughed for the first time in weeks. Back home, Caleb and Zalara spent many evenings talking by the fire. They spoke about their dreams and hopes for the future. Zalara told Caleb she wanted to help people, to show her people that humans were not enemies. Caleb smiled. You can build a bridge between our worlds. Zilara looked at him thoughtfully. Maybe I can. Zilara also began to learn Earth customs. She practiced speaking English more clearly. She learned how to cook simple meals. She even began to wear clothes like Caleb's, soft fabrics and bright colors. Caleb noticed these changes but never pushed her. He let her choose her own path. One evening, Zilara surprised Caleb. She cooked dinner for him, a small dish from Zarketh made with herbs and grains. Caleb tasted the food carefully. "It is delicious," he said, smiling. Zilara's face lit up with joy. But change was not easy for everyone. News arrived that Zilara's family wanted her back. They said her punishment was over, and she must return home. Zilara was torn. She missed her family, but she did not want to leave Caleb or the new life she was building. Caleb tried to hide his worry. He told her, "If you want to go, I will understand." Zilara looked at him sadly. "I do not know what to do." Caleb took her hands. "Whatever you choose, I will support you." One night, Zilara stood by the window looking at the stars. She whispered, "This world feels like home now. But my heart is still tied to Zarketh." Caleb joined her. "Your heart can hold more than one home." She smiled softly and leaned on his shoulder. The future was uncertain, but for the first time since she arrived on Earth, Zilara felt hope. Hope that maybe, just maybe, she could find happiness here. The sun was shining brightly over the mountain town when the message arrived. Zilara sat quietly at the small wooden table in Caleb's kitchen. Caleb had just poured 2 cups of tea when a sharp beep from his old communicator broke the silence. He opened the message with a serious face. "It's from your family," Caleb said softly. Zilara's eyes grew wide. Her hands trembled slightly as she reached for the device. The message was clear. Zilara's punishment period was over. She was expected to return to Zarketh immediately. Her family demanded it. They said she must come back to face the consequences of her failure. Zilara's heart sank. She looked up at Caleb with pain in her eyes. "They want me back," she whispered. "They say my time here is finished." Caleb reached out and took her hand gently. "What do you want to do?" Zilara hesitated. "I do not want to leave, not now." Caleb nodded. "Then you must decide what is best for you." The days that followed were hard. Zilara felt torn between 2 worlds. Her loyalty to her family and her people called her back home. But the life she was building with Caleb pulled her forward. She remembered the cold halls of the palace on Zarketh, the strict rules, and the looks of disappointment from her family. Here, on Earth, Caleb treated her as a friend, as an equal. She did not want to lose that. One afternoon, Caleb sat with Zilara under the shade of a tall tree. "Your people expect you to return," Caleb said softly, "but you are your own person." Zilara looked down. "If I refuse, I will bring shame to my family. They may never forgive me." Caleb smiled gently. "Sometimes we must follow our own hearts, even if others do not understand." Zilara met his gaze. "You speak like you know this feeling." Caleb nodded. "I do. I left my old life behind when I chose to care for you." The tension grew when Earth officials contacted Caleb. They reminded him that the peace treaty required Zilara to return after her punishment. Caleb argued that she was more than a punishment now. She was a guest and a person with rights. The officials warned him that keeping her might cause problems between Earth and Zarketh. Caleb felt the weight of the decision. He wanted to protect Zilara, but he did not want to start a war. Zilara felt the pressure too. Her family sent messages filled with anger and disappointment. "They say I am weak and disloyal," she told Caleb one evening, tears in her eyes. Caleb held her close. "You are neither. You are brave and strong." Finally, the day came when Zilara had to decide. The spaceport was busy with ships from many planets. Zilara stood beside Caleb, her heart pounding. A shuttle from Zarketh waited, ready to take her home. Her family watched from a distance. There, faces cold and stern. Caleb looked at her. "Whatever you choose, I will stand by you." Zalara took a deep breath. She looked at the stars above, the same stars she had seen since she arrived on Earth. Then, she turned to Caleb. "I will stay," she said firmly. "Not as a punishment, not as a slave, but as someone who chooses to be here." Caleb smiled with relief. The crowd gasped, some in shock, others in disbelief. The leaders of Zarketh were not pleased. They sent a message warning of consequences if she stayed. But Zalara was determined. She refused to return to a life where she had no freedom. Caleb and Zalara prepared for a new life together. They planned to build a home where they could welcome friends from both worlds. Zalara dreamed of teaching her people that humans could be kind, strong, and honorable. Caleb promised to help her. The bond between them had been tested by loyalty and duty, but in the end their choice was clear. They chose each other. The morning sun rose gently over the mountains, casting golden light on Caleb's small house. Today was different. Zalara stood by the window, dressed in a new outfit she had chosen herself, a blend of earth fabric and her own people's style. The colors were soft but bright, just like her mood. She took a deep breath and smiled. Caleb was busy in the kitchen preparing a simple meal for the special day. "This is not a normal day," he said softly, more to himself than anyone else. Zalara came to him and placed her hand on his shoulder. "Thank you for everything," she said quietly. Caleb looked at her and smiled. "We made this together." Friends from both worlds began to arrive. From Earth, Caleb's neighbors and colleagues came to celebrate. They were curious but kind. From Zarketh, a few brave aliens had come too. Some were surprised, others doubtful. But all came with respect. The ceremony was held outside under the wide blue sky. Caleb and Zalara stood side by side. A wise elder from Zarketh spoke first. "Today is a new beginning," he said. "A union not just between two people, but between two worlds." The crowd nodded in agreement. Zalara wore a ceremonial band around her wrist. It was the same band she had worn when she was given as punishment, a symbol of shame. But now, it had been changed. The band was polished and decorated with new stones. It was a sign of freedom, choice, and respect. She looked at Caleb and smiled. Caleb took her hand and spoke clearly. "Zalara is no longer a punishment. She is my partner, my friend, and my family." The crowd cheered. Zalara's heart felt full after the ceremony. They walked through the forest near the house. The air was fresh and the birds sang. They talked about their future plans. Zalara wanted to build a center where humans and aliens could learn from each other. Caleb dreamed of creating machines that would help both worlds live better. "I never thought this would happen," Caleb said, laughing softly. "Neither did I," Zalara replied. "But I am glad it did." They smiled at each other. The path ahead was still uncertain. Some people would not understand their union. But Caleb and Zalara were ready to face any challenge together. Because now, they had more than duty or punishment. They had love. That night, under the stars, Zalara whispered, "Maybe being given as punishment was the best thing that ever happened to me." Caleb held her close and replied, "Sometimes, life surprises us in the best ways." They looked up at the sky together, hopeful for all the days to come.